Good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight? Good evening, Mr. Joe Sanfilippo. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic, brother. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Welcome, everyone, to the weekly show. We got a Sunday night. It's our first shot at a Sunday evening. That must mean one of us must be traveling, Joe. And I find myself in beautiful Bismarck, North Dakota tonight in a beautiful Hilton Hotel. Cannot beat it. So, but honestly, really what I want to talk about right now?
Don't talk about your Hawks.
Iowa Hawkeyes, baby. You got to admit,
congratulations. You got
even
hot.
as a Badger fan.
When's the last time that a team that won the Big Ten tournament won the NCAA tournament?
I know, but hey,
that's all right. Relax a little bit. You have your day. You had your time. It's about right. Hey, Bucky got a great draw. Like a great draw.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Once again, Wisconsin gets to play at home because that's the only way you guys can win a game.
Unbelievable. Or 2 or 3 or 6. That's kind of the way that it works. That's right. And I'm a Marquette guy too. You know that, right? Like I'm a Marquette guy. They play North Carolina in the opening round, which is just great. And then of course they get a night off because then they'll play Baylor. So that's awesome. So you go from North Carolina to Baylor. It's tough situation for the Golden Eagles, but I love what the Badgers did this year too. So Iowa was on a great run, so good for them. I got my USA Nordic ski jumping sweatshirt on, and you might be like, why would you have a ski jumping sweatshirt on, Joe? It makes no sense at all until you realize that 2 of the members of the USA Junior Olympic team are from Fall Creek. 2 of them.
There you go.
Done jumping in Poland. I got a chance to see them jump. I got some videos sent to me, and 2 of them are Fall Creek kids, and I love them. They're such great kids, an incredible family, and anytime we can support their work, we're going to. These kids are jumping. Like I see them jump, and I was like, they're not going to jump from wait a minute, and then all of a sudden they're in the air, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. There's no chance you would get me up there to walk down that hill. And they're coming down on these huge skis. Forget it. If I'm going to support them, I'll support them. I'll buy the stuff. I'll wear the stuff, Jimmy. But don't get me on that hill. Don't get me on that hill.
Joe, I thought you were going to wear like a marathon shirt or something because I know how you love to run. That's really what I thought this all about. That or a karaoke shirt, something like that.
No singing, no running. If I'm running, I'm being chased. And then I just have to make sure I'm not last. That's all that matters at that point. And I'll trip you. I swear to God, I'll trip you, Jimmy. I swear. If we're running and we're being chased by like a wild animal and we're neck and neck, I will trip you. And then
if we're being chased by a wild animal, I feel pretty darn safe because all I got to do is outrun you, buddy.
Oh, please. Like a sprinter. My kids are sprinters. This is fine. I got no issue.
It's all imagine if you have to hurdle something. You're never going to make it over that hurdle.
I'm dead.
You're never going to make it over that hurdle.
Not dead. I'm dead at that point, but that's all right. Then you're gonna have to find somebody else to do the show with, and that's not going to work out for you. Nobody wants to spend an hour with you.
Hey, we got people on the show tonight that would jump in right now. I'll invite somebody in right now, Joe. You can go home. You can just go to bed.
What? Nobody's coming to watch this thing. It's 8:00 Central right now. People are in bed. How are you not in bed? I'm serious. Like the wheel was over at like 5:30, and you ate lunch at 4. So let's be clear about our dinner at 4. Let's be clear about what's happening here, my man.
I know it's hard to believe. I do have a birthday coming up, man. Double nickels. I can't believe that.
What?
Holy cow. I'm an old guy.
Do you know my parents?
I'm an old
guy. So here's what we're going to talk about. Did you went to school with them today? So we're going to talk about leadership on all levels. I'm excited to do it. And what was really cool about this week is we got a couple of problems of practice sent to us, which I thought were really cool. But this week was fun for me because I got a chance to lead the District Administration Superintendent Academy, DA Superintendent Academy, and our first of 3 sessions was fantastic. We had it in Dallas, and we had people from all. It's funny. It's great because we limit the number of people, and we had just under 20 leaders from all over the country, aspiring superintendents. And it was really fun to really dive deep into what their perspective is on leadership and try to help them grow. But also, I think I learned just as much, if not more, than they learned from us this week. So, what a great opportunity to just kind of think about what leadership looks like across the country. And that's been really fun for me.
That's awesome, Joe. Congratulations on that. That kind of leads us into our first question, right? I think we got a problem of practice, not really a problem of practice, but at least a question tonight was, hey, listen, if I'm a building principal, how do I best prepare myself? And when do I know it's the right time for the next jump up to the next level? If I want to pursue a central office position, whether it's an associate superintendent position or a superintendent position. And, my first thought that comes with this, because I do get this question a lot, right? Like student teachers who, hey, if I want to get a job as teaching somewhere, what do I need to do? Or if I'm a teacher and I want to aspire to be a principal. So I think I would just follow the same advice I'd give for any level, really. So when you're looking at one level and you want to move to the next level, the first thing I always think is, I guess, what should be if I'm a student teacher, right, and I want to be a teacher, what do I need to do to best prepare myself? And I always say to people, be the best student teacher that cooperating teacher's ever had, right?
Exactly.
Measure yourself like you be the best student teacher that teacher's ever had, right? You be the best teacher that principal has ever worked with, right? You be the best principal, right? That superintendent can say you're the best principal I've ever worked for, right? To me, that's always the bar first, right? Because these individuals are the first ones on the front line who are probably going to write that letter of recommendation, who are going to support you, who are going to champion for you, who might even have those connections that are necessary sometimes. So to me, that's always the standard, first of all. But obviously, we can best prepare ourselves by, number one, I always tell people, surround yourself by good, strong leaders, mentors, good mentors, people who have your best interest, people you admire, people who have the work ethic and the drive and the desire, who have the character, right, the integrity, the people you want to emulate, right? Who's on your board of directors, right? And so these are the people you should surround yourself with. Learn from them, ask questions. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do. That's what I always think. There's so many people out there that are always willing to help. And every one of us is where we're at today because someone helped us get there, right? And so it's not something we should try to do on our own, but I think connections are critical, right? Try to learn from as many different people as you can. Shadow people. If that means going to different buildings, finding mentors, obviously social media, a great way to reach out to people. I think people are super helpful, especially educators. I think we got a great reputation for helping others. And so that's kind of how I usually start. Then obviously, if I was going to aspire to be a superintendent, then I would want to start spending some time with the superintendent to really understand what happens in their shoes, right? Because there's a lot of things that we as principals don't necessarily do that we have to prepare for in that next role, right? Whether it's working with legislation, whether it's a different type of budgeting, whether it's, and especially like the partnerships, right? The community partnerships. Sometimes it is a little political, right? So what does that look like? And how do I drive a strategic plan? How do I build this team? And there's so many facets, especially when it comes to working with a board. And I think that's one of the key components of it. But again, Joe, I'll turn that over to you from that aspect, as obviously since you're currently in that role. So what recommendations would you say to a principal who's aspiring to be a superintendent, Joe?
Well, the first thing is be so good at your job that you can't be ignored. I think it comes down to that because for two reasons. One is you want to be in your situation where people know and understand that the work that you're doing right now is outstanding. That's first and foremost, is make sure that you're really good at the work that you're doing. But if you're so good that you can't be ignored, nobody's going to say, well, he's looking for the next thing, or she's looking for the next thing, or they're just here for a couple years, or whatever the case may be. Like, you have to know in your heart that it's the right thing to do, but you have to be so good at the position that you're currently in. That's what's going to give you a shot moving forward. The other thing that I would tell you is just make sure that people in your circle, whatever circle that is, the inner circle that you keep, they're ready for whatever that next job is. If it's moving from a student teacher to a teacher, or a teacher to a principal, or a principal to a superintendent, whatever the case may be. It's not about moving up, it's just moving to a different spot. And whenever you move to a different spot with different responsibilities, I think it's really important to take care of the people inside the circle and say, do you really understand what's going to happen if we decide that this is going to be the next step? And for us, it was like really talking to the kids, and saying, hey, if dad's going to be a superintendent in the area that you're going to, be going to school in, do you understand what the ramifications of that are? Guess what? You might not get invited to the parties. Okay. You might not get invited to there's some opportunities that you're just not going to have. Now, are there times that I can open the gym up for you at 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night? Absolutely. Right. But you're going to be left out of stuff because of what dad does. That's just what it is. So if we're okay with that, let's make the move. If we're not okay with that, then let's have a real conversation about what it's supposed to look like. So remember, when you go into this position, whatever the position is that you're aspiring to be, or the next step or whatever, the thing that's really important is that you remember that you're there doing the work in the office, in the school, in the community, whatever the case may be. But the people that you go home to, right? They're part of this thing too. And they're getting there are pieces that you don't understand that they have to go through. So how are we making sure that we take those people with us so we don't feel isolated? Because this job gets to be isolating enough as it is. And if we're isolating them by not taking them with us, that anybody in the inner circle, your family, your friends, and whatever the case may be, then we got to really think about how we're moving forward, because it's going to get real lonely real quick.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, because I think it can go different ways as well, Joe. And I'll kind of go off on a little bit of a different turn on this question, but I think it comes up a lot, right? So how about this? So I'm a teacher, right? Let's say there's a teacher who's a really, really effective teacher. And we kind of go back and forth on this all the time, right? Well, what about administrators who encourage teachers to go into school leadership? All right. So think of it from that perspective. The second question then comes up is, what about teachers who feel so passionate about teaching that they don't want to leave the classroom, right?
Yes.
They're like, you know what? I don't want to. And I think that's always the challenge for us, right? Like, we also don't want them leaving the classroom. But I also see the other side is, I know people who reached out to me and encouraged me to go into administration. And I thought, wow, someone sees some potential in me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't think there's a wrong or a right way. I think obviously, if we see potential in people, we want to encourage them and support them in that role. But I also don't think we should be frustrated with teachers who don't want to move into administration, because people just want to stay and continue to teach, right? And that's a good thing too. But what about the next level? What's your thoughts on APs? Should all APs aspire for a principalship, or should they be content as saying, you know what, I'm good just being an assistant principal for my rest of my career? That's the one I usually get. I'm a little more torn on that one. Yeah, I think principals, again, should stay in the principal role who don't aspire for central office. But there's something about APs and whether or not they should move into the principalship, because I know some districts, and I'm working with one right now, that they're a little frustrated because that is also a training ground for them. And they want that assistant principal to aspire for that, because they want to bring other people into that role who do aspire for the principalship. So you want to talk about that a little bit? What's your thoughts on that?
That's a tough one. I want to
audience on that one too, right? Because there's a lot of different perspectives. Yeah. Again, there's no right or wrong answer.
No.
But it's just interesting what people's perspectives and when they bring is how and when to advance to that next level. Is that a good thing, bad thing? Should we be frustrated with people when they don't? And again, I'm okay with all levels except maybe the AP to principal. I think I understand that one a little bit more.
So I think one of the things that you said that I want to be really clear with everybody is, when you say something like, should we be frustrated if they don't want to aspire? What we have to understand is it's their journey. It's not ours. And that hit me a couple times really hard. One in particular, I have an incredible teacher in the building, just incredible teacher in the building. And at one point I had a conversation with him about, is administration something that you're, looking into? I think you'd be a great leader for the building. You'd be fantastic, or any building, or anything you want to do. And I felt like, yeah, I'm giving this guy an opportunity to talk about what leadership could look like at another level. Next day, I'm walking past his room and he calls me into his office. He's like, that really, that upset me that you said that, because I want to be the best teacher that I can be. And here you think I need to be doing something else. And I felt awful because, again, it's not my journey, it's his. And I got to be cognizant of the fact that he inspires kids every single day. He's an incredible teacher. And I want to make sure that my support of him is to make sure that he continues to be an incredible teacher, not expecting something that I think that he should do. So that's the first part of it, is to make sure that we understand that it's their journey, not ours. We're just a piece of the puzzle moving forward. So the best thing to do is ask them, like, what are your aspirations? Do you have any, in terms of aspiring to building leadership or district leadership? Are you aspiring to continue to be the greatest teacher that these kids will ever have? Whatever it is, let's help you get there. But I don't know that if I don't ask the question. And I didn't ask the question there. And I am so glad that he called me out on it. So glad, because I wouldn't have got any better in doing it. I probably would have done it again. But it makes me think about it every time. Now, when it comes to the AP principal discussion, that's a really interesting one, because I think what ends up happening is you think you want to groom the AP to get to the principal position, but guess what? There's not always a principal position. So where are they going to get a principal position? Somewhere else. So now you're training and grooming someone to go to a place that's not going to help you anymore, and you're putting the work in, and then they go somewhere else. Well, if we're in this for the right reasons, we're in this to support kids, we're in this to support teachers, we're in this to support communities, we're in this to support leaders. Do we want them to stay, our best people to stay? Absolutely. But if we're helping them get to the next level and inspire more kids, more teachers, and be better for more communities, I think we got to be okay. I really do. And that's not a waste of time by any stretch of the imagination, because not only are you getting better at developing people, because that's a skill, that's a total skill, but guess what? They're going to learn from you wherever they go, good or bad, and they're going to take those lessons with them in whatever next position that they hold.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's part of the reason why when we're working with people, right, we should always ask them, what are their long-term goals, right? Because I always thought ourselves as leaders is to help them get to where they want to get to, right?
Not where we want them to get to.
Right. So if you look at it from a broader perspective, if we look at it from, hey, we're about supporting all educators regardless. Look, they're going to be good for some school, some community. That means they're good for kids, right? Regardless of where that's at. So again, if Joe Sanfilippo is my AP, if I say to him right up front, hey, Joe, I want to help you get to the principalship, but I'll be honest, I don't see a principalship opening up in this district. However, I still want to get you to that role if that's what you want, and I'll do everything it takes to get you there. Part of the reason is because, again, I think we're serving them. I think we're supporting them to get them where they want to get to. Again, from the larger global perspective, they're still good for education, right? But here's the thing also, heck, you never know. 3 years down the road, 2 years down, 5, they may come back, right? There might be a position, and now they've gone somewhere else and just gotten better and better in that role. So there's a lot of benefits that come from that. I'm looking at some of the comments here, Joe, and I want to comment to Bob, and I love that, when I first saw it, I said, he's right? If you're happy, that's important regardless of the move, right? But then I also think the comment, let's see, what else did he say? He said, if you are happy, that is important regardless of the mood. And as far as moving, don't ever run from happiness. Yeah. But I also want to add to that, don't ever run from unhappiness. So in other words, if you're not happy as a teacher, I'm not sure moving to administration is the answer either, right? It's like, hey, it's not like, hey, I'm not happy here, so I'm going to go try this and maybe I'll be happier. I think sometimes the best time to move is when you are happy, right? It's like the best time to look for a job is when you're content in your current job, right?
When you don't need one.
Yeah, when I don't need one. I don't want to go chase it because I'm unhappy in my job. But I get it. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do that. And everybody has their own, opinion on how to go about that. But I just try to look at it from all those different facets. But I still think it's a good conversation. I'm always fascinated why people decide to move, when to move, not to move. And there's always obviously other external factors that come into play as well. So
well, you'll do your best work
for jumping in and sharing those comments.
Yeah, you'll do your best work wherever you're happiest. And I think that a lot of people, that doesn't mean that you're not being pushed in that area, but when you're happiest, when you feel like you're in a situation where you can move people forward or help, whatever the case may be, when you're happiest and you feel like you're engaged in the work, you're going to be the best at it, regardless of what position that is. And I think there's this thought that, well, if things aren't really working well here, then they'll be better somewhere else. A lot of times those same issues go with us because we haven't addressed our role in whatever the issue was in that moment, right? I mean, if we're in a spot where we're having a hard time with the staff member, with the staff, with a group, whatever the case may be, and we're thinking, well, you know what, across town or 3 towns over, across the state, I'm going to have better success, so I'll go over there and it'll be fine. Well, if we haven't addressed what the issue is in our current position and what our role was in that current position to help, create that issue or contribute to that issue, when you go to the next spot, it's going to be the same thing. So, and then you're going to figure out like what happened here. Maybe this place is the same as the other place. Well, guess what? Maybe you are. So how can we fix that part too?
Yeah, there's a lot of legs in this conversation, right? You start talking, it throws something else out at me too, right? I agree completely. Is that I always get, Jimmy, what if I'm unhappy? What if I feel stuck? What if I don't see a future here? And I always say, well, first of all, the people above you who you aspire for deserve an opportunity for you to express that concern, right? Go have the conversation, at least try to understand where they're at. People who try for positions that are internal candidates, I think that's always a tough one, right? You try for a position. I think you have to take people at their word. Sometimes people aren't ready for that position. I think as long as people are communicating, what's been your prior relationship with that individual? Do you really believe them when they tell you? Are they genuine, sincere? Do you trust them when they tell you, hey, hang in there with me, your time will come, it just wasn't this time? Or is it other times do you apply for a position, and the communication really isn't there. You don't really feel like a good, you don't feel that value. I do think at that time it's maybe time to search, because I think sometimes the writing is on the wall for whatever reason. That organization, that school, that supervisor doesn't see the value in you to help them where they need to get to. And so again, I think it's okay. I don't think it's running away. I think sometimes people don't find themselves in a good fit. I do believe, at least in my experience, I've seen people who are in truly toxic situations. Yeah. At some point, you got to do what's best for you, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. And that's not selfish. And so again, it always goes back to me. All this is about how we communicate with our people. People should not be left to figure out, does my supervisor value me? Is my supervisor having conversations with me? Is my supervisor trying to help me? Are they supportive and trying to help me advance if that's what I seek, right? And again, I think that's where the communication is always important. But I think internal candidates are really, really tricky. And I always tell people, if you're an internal candidate and you're going to apply for a position, the first question you should ask yourself is, what if they say no? What if you don't get it? Are you going to get your feelings hurt? Are you going to be bitter? Are you going to want to leave? Are you going to be wounded? Or are you going to work even harder? Are you going to find out why and then keep trying to get that position, right? My son, I was talking to him today just about the Iowa Hawkeye game today. He was telling me about one of the players, right, who was the starter at the beginning of the year, and then he got benched. A lot of times we see athletes who just begin to feel wounded. They give up. They have become an attitude. They become a cancer on the team. They're seen as selfish because they're not really rooting for the team. And you love those players, man, that just stick with it and keep working hard and work hard. And then guess what? Their moment comes again.
Yep.
And I think they create themselves for that. And I had I had a dean that way, right? For me, I think people, I'm Colin, right? Colin didn't get the job.
I'm Colin.
Right? And I knew he was going to someday be that, but it just wasn't the right time. He didn't have what we were looking for. It wasn't the right fit at that moment, but I knew someday it would be. And then I had to tell him twice I had to tell him no, but I kept telling him to hang in there. And eventually he got the position, and it was one of the happiest days for me. Right. But he also earned it too. And I felt really good about that as well. So again, this is a great conversation because there's so many different directions it can go when it comes to hiring internal candidates, moving, advancing. Should I stay? Should I go? All those types of things that are, I think a lot of educators are constantly thinking about, when is a good time or when is it a right time for me to move? So.
Yeah, and that's such an individual decision too. And I think I think we've been in a situation. Personally, it was one time where I felt like I wanted a different leadership opportunity, where I wanted to go from working in a building as a counselor to working as a principal. But I've also had that situation where I wanted a move within district from being a principal in one area to being a principal in the other, and was not given that opportunity to do that. And I had to have some tough conversations with the people around, just to say, hey, I just need to know if this is, if you feel like this is the spot for me, this is my spot, then you just need to let me know. If this is the only opportunity that I'm going to have in this district, then you just let me know, and we'll figure it out from there. And that's a tough conversation to have, right? I mean, that's a really tough conversation to have, because when you feel like you're the right fit and then you're not, and I wasn't at that point, that's just what it was. And, we had to find something where I was, and thankfully we did. We found the best place on earth, to be really honest. So I think it's been, I was talking to somebody the other day about it when they didn't get a position that they wanted. And I said, this is the time. This is the time where you need to really keep the ear to the ground, keep your eyes open, because this is the time that something good's going to happen for you. I know it always does. There's always like the next opportunity. And sometimes we're putting our head down and sulking because we didn't get the thing that we thought we wanted, when the thing that we really needed or could get is right in front of us, but our head is down because we're pouting about what happened behind us.
Yep.
Nothing you can do about that at this point. And that's a really hard reality at some point too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many people did not get a job that they aspired for and then landed a position that they're so grateful that they have today.
I know, right?
It happens so many times.
Oh my gosh, it happens
more
often than you. I mean, so many people I talk to, it happened to, and I am a perfect example of that. I mean, I wouldn't be in this district. I mean, it's just it's been such a wonderful experience, and I had I didn't know where Fall Creek was, and I literally live 15 miles away. No idea.
Sonia says on here, I'm reading her comments. She says, anytime you don't get something you hope for, you'll feel wounded. We put our heart and soul into everything we do. It will sting no matter what. And Sonia's absolutely right. And I often told people, look, if it didn't bother you and you weren't hurt, I'd be concerned about that, right? Like it should hurt. It should hurt, right? It's just that you take it and you reflect on it, and it's okay to be wounded for a little bit, but then it's time to get back and let's get back at it again, right? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with taking some time to, whether you want to feel sorry for yourself or we want to be frustrated, we want to be mad or whatever. Again, it's always proper place, time, and manner, but I don't think we should beat ourselves up for that because it just goes to show you how badly somebody wanted something. That's it's okay to be disappointed, right? You should be disappointed.
Absolutely. You should. You actually should. I mean, obviously you should. I mean, just because if you prepare the way that you should prepare and you put in the work to get to, through the process, through the interview process, through everything that goes on, and you've done everything that you possibly can, which is what we tell people to do. You do everything that you possibly can to put yourself in a position to get to whatever that level is that you want. You've done everything. You've done all the research. You've done the interview questions. You've thought about how you're going to answer. You thought about, your purpose and why you move forward with your purpose and what that really means to you. And I think if you're doing all of those things and you still don't get what you're looking for, you should feel like, you should feel sad about it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Hey, Joe, I'm going to ask, I saw Josh Tovar is on here. Josh, I don't know if you'd be interested in jumping in tonight with us into the studio. This guy was, he's been on a couple of podcasts here recently, just doing really good work. He was out in El Paso. Now he's over near outside Dallas area. Josh, would you want to jump in, my friend, and just give us a couple thoughts on leadership and culture or anything you want to talk about? But let me know if you want to jump in. I just saw you in here and just really proud of the work you're doing. So, Josh, if you want to jump in, we'd love to have you jump in the studio and just share a few of your thoughts with the audience here tonight. So in the meantime, Joe, I do know there's another problem of practice someone shared with us that we can come back and talk about. And that is the whole idea. Go ahead, buddy.
Was that the hair care one?
This is the
hair care product one.
The hair. Yes, the hair care. Is it time for a commercial break? Let's talk about hair care products just for a second, Joe. I mean, you opened the door. Let's just go for it. Joe, I'm going to be really honest with you. Here's one thing that's really cool about not having any hair. Joe, I bought a bottle of shampoo.
Why? Why would you do that?
Listen to me. Over a year ago.
Clearly.
And I'm still on the same bottle of shampoo.
Why would you even
if that isn't an awesome reason not to have any hair, buddy, my shampoo budget and my hair product budget is like almost zero. So I can invest that money and make some serious cash on the hair products.
You're gonna love this. So it's years ago. My wife asked me to go to a salon and get some product for her hair, and it was the middle of winter. And so I walk in and I've got this hat on. And I walk into this place and everybody's standing around the reception area, whatever. And I walk in, I start doing this.
Oh, we lost your volume. I hear you.
Did you lose me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I said I'm going. I walk up there. I'm like, can you do anything with this? And they looked at me like I had 9 heads. I'm like, yeah, okay. Can I just get that little thing over there? Yeah, that's the way it works. It's good. They didn't think I was funny, but clearly I am.
Didn't really get it, huh?
I know funny. I can't believe you lost the microphone. I thought I had a different microphone going on.
That's what happened. I don't know what happened, but I just want to remind everybody that when I became a principal, I had a full head of hair. There's something about the job. I don't know what it is, but it does it to you. So there is a lot of bald principals. There's a lot of bald principals. There's a lot of divorce principals. There's a lot of why would anyone want to do this job, Joe? Why would anyone want to? Because it's the greatest job. That's why, Joe.
It's a great job. It's a great job. Absolutely.
Job. No matter what anybody says, it is the greatest job. School leadership people.
I agree. So you had another problem practice. Explain the problem practice.
Well, before we do that, let's let Josh in, then we'll come back with the problem practice. So, Josh, leadership. Josh,
so you had another problem. Explain the problem practice.
Well, what's going on, gentlemen?
Well, you got to turn the Facebook Facebook Live off.
Okay, my bad.
You had another problem. Explain the problem practice.
What's going on, gentlemen?
Well, you got to turn the Facebook Live off.
Okay, my bad.
You got it?
You got
That's
it.
the first time that happened. I'm
That's
sorry.
it, man.
That's
Hey,
because
don't
you got
worry,
two
it's-
things open. You're fine.
It's literally happened to us every single time. At some point, we're going to be smart enough to tell people when you come into the room,
Right.
turn
right.
your other thing off so you don't, echo. But no. That was Jimmy. He was supposed to do it every time. He doesn't ever do it. He doesn't listen to me. We've in the 3 pre-production meetings for this podcast or thing, we talk about it every time, but he doesn't listen to me. I mean, we
It's
spend
all
4
right.
hours prepping for this thing, but then whatever.
Josh, here's the real truth. I spend 4 hours prepping on it. He gets
What?
on literally 90 seconds before we go on the air. That's
That's
the
not
real
true.
truth, Josh. And
That's
I
not
have
That is
true at all.
bad.
I
Yeah.
have witnesses.
That's
It was,
Hey,
no,
buddy.
that- thank you for
What?
thank you for bringing me on board. I knew that you guys were going on, but you know that we also have a podcast around the same time. But I needed to learn from the best right here, Joe and Jimmy. Puras ganas aquí, amigos.
Puras
We
ganas,
gotta-
amigo. Puras ganas.
We got to get you all. We got to expand your horizons.
Joe,
a
you're
little
off
bit,
the
Josh.
show. Josh and I are going to do the show in Spanish now. So if you want to translate, you can go right ahead. But I
Oh
mean,
my gosh, that would be a
Hey,
disaster.
it's a
I just
growing
mixed up.
demographic, Hispanics.
I got nothing. Well, thanks so much for joining us there, Josh. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah. So we're talking about, the idea of, when do you know if it's the time to move on? When do you know what's next for you? And I think one of the things that we talked about was really being intentional about our work and being really good at the position that we're in. And I think when it comes down to intention and doing that, we want to know what other people are doing to make sure that you stay in the moment, even though there might be something else out there for you. How do you continue in your job to stay in the moment with the work that you have to do, knowing that there might be at some point there might be something different or whatever for you, but how do you stay present and engaged in the moment in the current work that you're doing?
You know what, Joe and Jimmy, one of the things that Jimmy knows about me is that I'm 100% honest. And as Baruti Cafeli says, I don't fake the funk. So I'll let you know one thing. I was an assistant principal for 14 years. 14 years is in the same district. And as the superintendents came in, they chose who would apply for the pool.
Okay.
And it was very political. And you know what? That does destroy a lot of assistant principals. So let me tell you out there, don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Keep working hard. Keep putting in the time. At that moment, when you know that the winds of politics are not on your side, you got 2 choices: leave or stay there and keep on proving people wrong. Don't prove them right, prove them wrong by always putting in 100%. And someone will always look out and say, hey, if I ever get that chance, I need that person part of my team. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened to me. And Jimmy's attest to this, because when I got selected to become the principal after 14 years at the neighboring district, it was an area superintendent that supervised me that I was a peer of also. And she said, I need you to come and fix this school.
Oh, cool.
I need you to come to this school because I know the tool set that you have, and it's perfect for the campus that I'm sending you to.
And that's the kind of leader that we want to work with, right? Like they see something in us that they know can be a great fit for what they're looking for. That's really cool.
Exactly. It comes down to what you said and what we all know. It's about the right fit at that moment for that campus. And you can't get discouraged. I can only tell you all, it is professionally very discouraging that you don't get the opportunity to apply. Mm-hmm. It's very discouraging that you don't get the politics, the win of politics. But you know what? Don't do it, because in the end, it's not about you. It's about what you're doing right for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, Josh won't tell you this, but he actually got it done in 3 years. And you know how these ratings come out in these report cards, but with him and his team and his staff, they took that school from a D-, right? Here we go again. We're rating and failing schools, which just makes me sick anyway. We shouldn't be doing that. But in some districts do that. That's fine. We're not judging, but that is what happens sometimes still in many of our districts. But Josh was able to take that school from a D- to a B- just in 3 years. And so he's not going to brag about that, but I know he did that with his staff.
Good for your team, man. That's fantastic. And that's everybody pulling together, trying to figure out a way to do it together. That's good. Good for you. Good for you.
And then they
good for your group.
And they got to be able to believe in what your vision is.
Yeah.
And you got to role model. They always role model what the expectation is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing that helped us all, like Jimmy said. And that's why, I mean, not to plug him, but you know what? You got to bring Jimmy and Joe to your campuses. I did bring Jimmy, but you see, it's got to match with what your vision is. And
Yeah.
Jim's vision, was my vision. And when he talked to our Bulldogs, our students, he brought the fire to them. And that's the year we kicked it up a notch again to a B minus. He told them at the end of the meeting, so you guys talk about ganas? Show me the ganas when the scores come in.
Hey, Josh, I still remember that, but I'll be honest. I had you on the show because I love your colors right now, buddy. That's the only reason I brought you
Come
the show.
on.
I mean, come on.
Grief. Look at that Hawkeye colors. My God.
Hey, Josh, we're going to leave you on here. I want you to take on this question in the chat box. Do you see the question from Jay Apostle in the chat box, Joe?
Oh,
and
no,
Josh?
I logged off of everything real
Okay,
quick.
I'm going to read it to you. Oh, there it is. You see it now, Josh?
You know what? In the end, I could only tell you one thing. It's to make sure that we always support our leadership above, because as they go, we all go. And we need to always remember that whatever that team members, that superintendent's vision is, we need to support it, because we can't wish ill for the pilot of the airplane. We always need to make sure that we give them the benefit of the doubt. Like Todd Whitaker says, we need to believe in them until they give us a reason not to believe in them. And whenever someone is hired and brand new to the campus or to the district, it is our job to support his or her vision to ensure success for all kids. And that comes from our board members. The board members are the ones that establish the policy and the vision for their community. In the end, those board members establish the vision. They bring in the right fit, as we talked about earlier, the right fit as an assistant principal, as a principal, and we are there to support that vision, because they are our elected members and we're there to give them their due. And in this end, it's their vision. And you know what? In the end, it's all about the kid business.
Yeah. If it comes back to that, I think it's a lot easier to have that conversation. I've been so lucky to work in a district with a school board that's incredibly supportive of the direction that the group wants to go. And it's not Joe's vision. It's everybody's opportunity to move forward. I'm just really super loud. So I think that's a big deal in terms of the work that if we could have, if we own it, it feels better to do it, and we'll put the more time in. And that's leadership 101 right there, is trying to get a group of people together to move in the right direction. If they can own it, they're going to feel better about the process. That's awesome, Josh. Well done.
And you know what, Joe? And the thing is that people like you, leaders like you, the very first time I saw you on Twitter and you're walking out in the snow, I don't know what you were saying. But you see, so many people that sit in your chair have this whole vision that they create, that they're behind this huge Versailles palace, and they don't leave the 20th century factory style leadership. But you're out there and you're walking and you're giving a vision, talking about kids. Go Crickets.
Crickets.
Go, keep on doing this stuff. And you're saying, you know what? I live across the street from the campus. I love it. I love it.
It was the only house available in town, man. That's kind of what it was. And everybody wanted to be here, but I'll tell you, I will, until my last breath, we will celebrate the great work that's happening in this building. And I'm just incredibly lucky to be able to do that. So, Josh, thank you so much
for jumping in, my friend. God bless you, buddy. Keep doing great things. We're thinking about you. Hey, Josh, the next time I'm in Dallas, we're heading to Bob's again, man.
You got it. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate you.
I was just in Dallas. I was just there.
Well, why didn't you invite Josh?
I didn't know. You're right outside. You're around Dallas?
Yeah, now he is.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh man! Well, I'll be there. We'll be back there again. I'm coming back in. I think this summer.
Gotcha.
We'll do it this summer. All right, man.
Peace out, Josh. Take care, my brother. Take care. Hey, Joe. I'm still thinking about this thing from Jay, right? And Jay is an assistant superintendent in Missouri, and so Jay, I'm going to try to just share a couple of thoughts on that. One thing I would say is this, right? You've been there long enough to know a lot of history. You know the community. You know many of the staff, and you've done a great job of building connections with people. So one thing I would do is I would encourage the new superintendent to maybe go with you and take him and have it and visit some buildings with him. Introduce him to some staff members, introduce him to some community members, do it together, introduce them, right? So you're going to be side by side with them on that. Get him out in the community, get him visible. That'd be one thing. The second thing I would do is I would encourage him to right away to start connecting with 3 different groups. Obviously the board, connect with the cabinet, and then connect with the building principals. And what I mean by connect, I mean actually sit down and hold interviews one-on-one with those individuals. But the key is this to me is I think a lot of people do this when they go into a new building or a new district. But my experience is they do it when they go in and they never do it again. So I'm going to suggest is that you help him understand the importance of reinvesting in that process, not just do it when you come in, but do it again in the middle of the year, do it at the end of the year, or at least a minimum of twice a year. And I think people will appreciate that, especially if you consistently do that over a long period of time, you sustain that. Because I always worry that when we do these things, it comes across a little bit like done, check, I did it.
Right.
As opposed
right.
to I'm really invested and I really want to know and I want to follow up. And I know when we talked in August, this is how you felt. How do you feel now in December? How do you feel now in May? And so those are just two specific things, Jay, I would say is maybe start off just with those two things, because obviously the individual is going to have a lot on their plate. But I think you would be a great support in that and guiding and supporting that along that journey as they transition to that new position.
So two things on that. First, yes, 100% agree with you. Everybody's got the 90-day plan, right? And the 90-day plan, in almost every 90-day plan that you will read for people coming into a building or into a district, everybody in the 90-day plan has meet with constituents, connect with the board, connect with the community, connect with the staff, connect with the kids, whatever the case would be. But how often do you see in that 90-day plan that we're coming back at 30 days, at 60, at 45 days, at 60 days, or at 75 days, whatever, to come back and actually have follow-up conversations about what the original conversation was? That's the first thing, is that it's just as important to make sure that when you think about what you're doing coming into that plan, that it's not just about making sure that you check a box. It's about developing a relationship that you're going to come back to, so you have constant conversations about the work that's happening. The second thing that's really important when it comes to moving people forward or helping that person move forward, and we talk about it here a lot. I know we've talked about this before, this whole mindset of recognize, acknowledge, extend. The idea that if you're in the right mindset to recognize the greatness that's happening around you, you acknowledge the greatness. Those are two great things, right? But the third thing, when you can extend the great things happening to somebody who doesn't see it, there's a better connection to what's going on in that individual event. Meaning, if you're in your cabinet conversations and you start out by celebrating some great things that are happening in your school, it wouldn't take long for everybody in that room to know and understand that the person that's being talked about in that celebration was going to get a call or a text or something from everybody else in that room at that particular time. That builds your capacity to lead. With a new person coming in, now you've got a chance to build around everybody, because now we're celebrating the work that happens outside in meaningful meetings when it comes down to building or district decisions.
Yeah, great points there, Joe. Thank you for that, my friend. Hey, this is a good reminder for those individuals who are joining us tonight, or we'll catch up on the actual recording. If you are interested in emailing us a problem of practice that you're currently experiencing in your building or your district or your school, please go ahead and email us. We'll drop the email in here where you can email us the problem of practice. And sometimes people want to keep that confidential, but we'll just share it. But feel free to email us during the week. We'd like to present your question on the show. And so that leads us into a second question that we have from an individual who threw out a message to us this week saying, so here's my problem of practice. I've seen teachers start to discount data more and more. I actually had a teacher say to me recently that she doesn't believe in data and doesn't find it helpful. Obviously, this is an extreme statement, but I've heard similar sentiments expressed more and more, with teachers regularly placing blame on the pandemic and not being willing to reflect on their own instruction. How do you build a positive data culture in your schools? So, Joe, I'm going to let you take that one on first. If anyone on the audience wants to jump in and share a thought or drop it in the chat box, that would be great too. But we're basically just talking about, I think this is the whole idea, right? That kind of I was on a podcast myself, talks about, right, Bloom's and taxonomy in terms of just what comes first, right? Maslow or Bloom's, right? Or Bloom's or Maslow. And do we take care of the needs before we take care of the academics, or should we take care of the academics how does that look, right? And so I'll let you chat about that one, Joe.
Here's what I would tell you. I think what the thing that we need to understand about data is that the data are what they are. Like that, the numbers are what they are. The question becomes, how do we utilize that to move forward? So two things that I would be really cognizant about when it comes to data. The first thing is that data does not drive a movement, right? The story connected to the data drives the movement. So if we're saying that we don't see or we don't believe the data, which is tough to believe. The thing that I would ask or I would come back to is, how is that data that we're talking about? Tell me a story about what that looks like in your space. This is what the data says. Let's not judge each other for it. Let's just take a look at what does it look like in terms of what that looks of what it is. The second thing that I would say is that I don't know if we're always utilizing it the right way, meaning I think we perseverate over the data instead of talking about how we're going to make things better. So we were talking this weekend about the idea, do your meetings typically consist of 20-80 or 80-20? Is it 20-80, 20% of looking at the data and 80% of the meeting figuring out a way to kind of, move the needle on that data, which I think comes with story? Or is it the other way around, trying to figure out how we got here in 80% of the data and just having data conversations? And now all of a sudden it's the end of the meeting and there's 20% of the meeting left. And you're like, well, we got to think about something. So how should we move it forward? So think about where your time is spent, but never forget where that data is coming from. That data is coming from interactions and behaviors and actions of kids. And all of those things come with story. And if we want people to move forward with the data, if we connect the story to the data, it connects to the emotion of the listener. And when you connect to the emotion of the listener, there's a much better chance for the data that's being talked about in that story to be used moving forward, because you've connected to the emotion of why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's like personalizing it, right? That's the first thing I think of, right? That data, we got to be careful because there's a kid, there's a face, there's someone behind that data point, whether it's an adult or a child. So that'd be the first thing I'd say. The second thing I'd say is this whole idea of a culture of data, right? Or data-driven decisions. One thing I will say, and look, I fell in this trap myself as an administrator, and then I had to keep getting better and better at it. And this is one thing that, for whatever reason, we as building admins sometimes, because we get caught in so many fires, one of the first places we let go is we stop attending some of these meetings where these conversations are happening. And so one of the things I would strongly encourage our admin is, if you're trying to create that culture, then it has to start with you attending these meetings and being a part of the conversation. And not showing up late, not going every now and then, but truly being a part of the team, not an outside observer, sit with the group, not back a ways or just observing, but actually being a part of the conversation. I think that's important to be a part of that team. Number two, I think it's important to use models of data teams that we have in our schools, because again, typically what I see is that some teams are more effective or stronger than other teams for many reasons. And so we need models. We need to come together and highlight and talk about a process. What does that look like? But at the end of the day, the teams that are, in my experience, that best talk about or use data in their teams are teams where everyone feels that they have a voice and they're able to talk through different situations, but they don't do it in a critical way. And that's because that culture has been established. And that's why it always goes back again. The foundation of every healthy culture has to start in relationships. If you don't have a culture of trust, it's going to be really hard to have a data-driven school when people don't trust and they can talk about these things. So, and
that goes back to what he said originally, like the person doesn't believe the data. Like, well, that comes from a place of lack of trust. Yep. And that's something, and this is something that I need to get substantially better at, and really investing in the conversations, and being at the table to have those conversations. I just need to get better at that. I think about it all the time.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what the collaborative team is, right? Some people have data-driven teams, some people have PLC, some people just use grade-level department meetings because they have collaborative meetings or whatever it happens to be the case. Or we have very specific ad hoc teams that really work, and it could be even from an MTSS team, right? Or RTI team. It could be a student information system team. It doesn't really matter what the team is. But part of it I continue to see, and this is again another issue that will arise if we're not careful. But part of that is, when we're working with these teams, is, do we have a process? What is that process? What is the outcome? What is the deliverable? What process are we using, right? What's the purpose of the meeting? So these things are all critical when we're putting these meetings together, or these teams together, I should say. But again, at the end of the day, we have to understand, why aren't people feeling comfortable talking? Why don't they feel comfortable? And what's the follow-up? What's the looping back? What's the circling back to have these conversations. Again, I think we're all coaches, we're all teachers, and we have to continue to coach one another and teach one another, because the only way to really grow and develop as an organization, if we're going to make an impact on that academic of students, is we've got to understand that we got to do it together. And I think that's part of the reason some of these data issues are rising. I still think too many people are still working in isolation, and we've got to get people back to working in teams. Again, I'll say it again. When you sat in that interview chair, if someone asked you, in this school, we believe in this, you've been all in as a collaborative team member, and now we have people working in isolation. So what happens, and how do we get them back into working with teams again? That collective efficacy.
Agreed.
So
very good. Yeah, that's I can't say it any better. That was fantastic. I totally agree.
Well, I'm looking at the comments here, seeing if anyone has something else they want to throw out there real quick here. We have about 10 minutes left in the show, but really about 5 here. But if anybody have a question or a problem of practice they'd like to share with us, or throw something out. If not, we will take a look at these comments. I think that's always good to see what people are sharing out. We appreciate the comments and people jumping in. So
yeah, it was nice for Josh to jump in, just talk about. We love having people just pop in and talk about some of the stuff that they're doing, and hopefully we can continue to do that. But this is a really hard job, and it's made much easier when the circle that you're developing to help you with that process continues to grow, and you can connect and bounce stuff off of each other. I love seeing the comments coming back and forth on just the way that it's spurs conversation. So really, really cool tonight.
Absolutely. Well, I think Joe and I have always been the kind of people say, hey, we know the show, we promise it will never be longer than an hour, but we're also not just going to drag it on just to talk about nothing.
Right.
So, hey, listen, again, if you have problems of practice that you would like to email out to us, we take those during the week. We'll bring them up in the show. We appreciate those individuals again who jumped in tonight. Thanks, Josh Tovar, for jumping in. Thanks, Jay Apostle, for throwing your question in there, my friend. It's also good to see you as well. And we just are really, really grateful for people who joined us. We know it's a little bit later night tonight than normal. Sometimes that travel schedule catches us a little bit, but that's why we call it the weekly show, because we're never quite sure if it's going to be a Saturday or Sunday, or at least once a week, right? But we really really grateful. So, Joe, it's always good to see you, my friend, and thank you again for joining me and partnering with me in this journey. So we're really grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Feelings mutual, my man. You be good, and good luck in Bismarck this week, and have fun, man. Have fun inspiring those leaders around you. You're gonna have a great week, and I'm looking forward to next week.
All right. Thank you, Sonia, as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming on tonight. God bless everyone. Make it a great week. And until next week, be the change, okay? Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Go.